Hi, I'm Michaela Main, and I am representing Longboard Architectural Products. Today, I am being joined by some amazing industry professionals who will introduce themselves shortly to discuss the meaning of true construction partnerships and how this topic can deeply affect the success of a project. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much to our panelists today for joining us, and I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves. So first off, we'll go over to Tony Stewart, who is the Vice President of Skanska.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Tony Stewart here, coming to you from Seattle, Washington. I've been with Skanska for 16 years. Prior to that, I was an architect that spent 10 years at NBBJ. And then I spent 5 years doing development. Have touched all three of those traditional stools: owner, architect, contractor. And my focus here in Seattle for our business is integrated project delivery, design, build, work. So thank you for having me.
Great. And then we'll go over to Simon Martinez, who is an associate principal at TVS Design.
Thank you for having me here today. My background includes multiple market sectors, both from public and private. I've worked different hats. I've worked on residential, mixed use, hospitality, office, educational, industrial, and commercial type projects. Most recently worked on a public assembly project, which I will be speaking about. I've got about over 20 years of experience, and I'm really excited to be here with you to talk to you about true construction partnership.
Great, thank you so much. And then lastly, we have Pippa Bradbury, who is the Director of Interior Design over at NOR.
Hi, so I'm with NOR in Chicago. I have a lot of global experience in hospitality, residential, both multifamily and high-end luxury, and commercial and furniture design. So I bring that global expertise to the table, and I've worked with many people around the world, and there's some things that work really well. And I want to talk about two projects today. One was a design and build collaboration we did, and another one where we kind of came in as the AOR. So yeah, two different comparisons, but looking forward to discussing them. And thank you for including us in this panel discussion.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. So we're actually going to jump right into the presentations from each of you on your work. So Tony, we'll start with you. If you could share a little bit about your project as it relates to the true construction partnership topic.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I want to tell you a story or share a story with you about a project. And this one is at the University of Washington here in Seattle. It is an integrated design build contract. And as a public entity, University of Washington couldn't go all the way to a full three-party contract, owner, architect, contractor, all signing a single contract. So this is just shy of that type of contract, but I want to share with you the spirit of this contract and the outcome. And I'll go right to the punchline. How do you quantify and reward behaviors within teams? So within this project, a $43 million renovation to an existing building on main campus there at the UW called Kincaid Hall. Ourselves and Perkins and Will here in Seattle partnered to pursue and win this project, but this incentive is called a risk reward incentive program, was created contractually by the University of Washington. We together, the owner, the architect, Perkins and Will, and Skanska co-authored first of its kind program, which would measure team behaviors and drive to an outcome to the success of this fully integrated delivery project. So as I mentioned, the punchline is, how do you quantify and measure behaviors? And I can give you a report that this project is completed, wildly successful, return savings to the owner, lots of headwinds with COVID and a number of other factors. Won't get into that messiness. But the key to the success of this program had very much to do with the four partners that were contractually bound together: the architect, the contractor, the mechanical, electrical subcontractor. And together that team had all of its fee at risk. We agreed with the owner we were going to put entire fee at risk And if the project went nuclear, we actually collectively would write checks to complete the project. So an extreme risk scenario, but also on the other side, a good, reasonable reward scenario for which I'm here to report out. It was not a gone nuclear scenario. It was actually highly successful. And we each were rewarded for 3 primary behaviors that we measured. The first one being the university, the owner, acknowledged open dialogue on soft costs and contingency review and release. They really had clear line of sight. So they really liked that behavior. The second one is throughout the life of the project, decisions were made for the whole rather than favoring the individual. And there's many examples that were cited to support that kind of behavior. And then lastly, probably one of the more key factors is there was a behavior of working together to solve problems at the lowest possible level. And so that was very much a culture and lots of behavior. And what's terrific about it in this engagement with the university is they rewarded us reasonably, and somewhat handsomely, maybe a 20 to 22% increase in respective fees. But it reinforced the belief that great owners, when they see value, they'll reward and pay for value. The trick was our team needed to demonstrate such. And I'm a firm believer that 99% of the clients, and we have an in-house client because we do our own commercial development, but for the Lions, for the most part, 99% of all of our clients that walk this planet don't design and build buildings for a living, right? They cure cancer, they make airplanes, they do other more mission purpose-based things that are at the core of their business. So this architect, this contractor really digs this integrated delivery where the design team and the contractors have figured out how to provide the maximum value for these clients who don't do this stuff for a living. So I'll end at that. Hopefully we'll have some Q&A. And if there's any more questions, we can get into that then. Look forward to the group conversation.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us, Tony. Obviously, it's perfectly applicable to our True Construction Partnership topic. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll come back to many of the points that you touched on.
Okay.
So Simon, over to you. I'll have you share now about your project.
Again, thank you for having me participate as part of this discussion regarding True Construction Partnership. Throughout my career, I've been part of different firm structures and project types. And regardless of the delivery method, they all have challenges, they all have obstacles that need to be overcome in order to achieve successful completion. As architects at TVS, we listen, we solve, we deliver. But there's 2 connecting words that really join different silos, and that starts with communication and continues with trust and experience. I'm going to spend a few minutes telling you about a project that we just finished, the Las Vegas Convention Center. Briefly provide a general overview, process at a higher level, as well as what it took to get the project completed. But first, before the pandemic, the Las Vegas hosted 6.6 million convention attendees and also have more than 14 million square feet of exhibit and meeting spaces. For convention centers, though, it's all about location, transportation, accommodations, and entertainment. And obviously, it doesn't hurt that Las Vegas averages 320 days of sunshine per year, so it never rains. The new facility is located northwest of the Vegas Strip in Las Vegas, Nevada. We provided full architectural and interior design services for this new 1.4 million square foot facility. It's owned and operated by the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. We refer to it as LVCVA. And this project was obviously an exciting undertaking. Working our way from, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the actual project. So working our way from the east or the right to the left or the west, you have the existing convention center that it's now connected to the facility with a connecting bridge. It leads you through a concourse that it's located on the south and right over here. And to the north, all this space, it's 600,000 square foot of exhibition space. There's also 150,000 square foot of meeting room and multi-purpose spaces scattered through the west and all along the west side of the X Hall. In addition, you have 14,000 square foot of outdoor terrace that it's located on the west side of the main lobby on the third level, which offers incredible views. That's located in this portion of the building. And I'll share more images. This project included TBS as the design lead and architect's record. So not only was this a sizable project, we also had a complex team structure. We worked with 4 local architectural firms and engineers from Structural in Seattle and MEP from Chicago to Life Safety in Massachusetts. We had lighting consultants and food and service consultants, to mention a few. And they all were located throughout the US. We were literally working throughout all the different time zones. We were engaged to start the project at the end of 2017. After 3 months, the CMAR, the construction manager at risk, was on board. And only 3 months after that, in June of 2018, the first steel was released. And construction started September of 2018. That's only 9 months after the project got started. Continue through the design phases, schematic design, DD, CDs. 100% construction documents were delivered May of 2019. So that's literally less than a year and a half later. This was a fast-track project with a complex scheduling sequencing that required collaboration and careful synthesis and analysis of design intent. But even with unforeseen events like COVID-19 pandemic, construction continued through 2020. The project was completed at the beginning of this year. So I wanted to share now a couple of images, but I'm going to kind of show you and tell you some of the highlights of the project, starting with the main atrium roof, that it's made up of a very complex geometric and undulated shape. We refer to it as the ribbon roof, which has on the exterior side 50 triangulated roof openings, cantilevering the main entrance of on the exterior side. It has the curtain wall, which at the top is 120 feet tall. You look up and you find 32 additional skylights inside the main atrium lobby space. And this provides a richness of natural light within the atrium's volume that literally more than delivers a remarkable first impression. Besides the skylights, though, you also experience the 10,000 square foot digital screen, which was developed by Sansom. This happens to be the largest digital screen in convention centers in the US. And behind the screen at floor level, you have a centrally located food court connecting the main west lobby and concourses together. On the east side of the food court, going back to the X Hall, the volume is just massive. And this is a finished product of the 600,000 exhibition hall. And the view of the Vega Strip from the outdoor terrace, as well as some images highlighting several of the concourses. And moving back to the exterior, you can see how the ribbon roof gently continues towards the existing convention center. And throughout the years, we worked on, we had meetings, presentations, workshops, more meetings, and they continue after design into construction, blending the two. Holding design and construction meetings, focus sessions, value engineering sessions, page turns, responding to RFIs, diving into the CA. During construction, while we were working on completing the design, we had construction coordination meetings where everyone was involved, from architects, engineers, consultants, or the contractors, subcontractors, the owner, and the owner's rep. And we got together to solve problems, and that was one of the key elements moving forward. Throughout the course of this project, we also used tools like Revit, M360, AutoCAD, Inkscape, SketchUp, Navisworks for design and construction coordination, and all helped the project move forward. So now we're talking about technology and how it helps push the project forward. So Dealing with a project of this size, in the scheme of things, it wasn't difficult, but it required careful attention to detail and a much higher level of coordination initiatives for things in places like food service and restrooms, from carpet to hanging points, from the loading dock to just ceilings, the smoke control system, and the intricacies between coordination, between the architectural intent and the implications on building systems, and the approach to how we solved issues. With both design and construction teams developing their own virtual content, we, again, were able to use technology to aid the coordination effort. This level of development started really early on the design process by each one of the engineers and consultants, which became more intricate as time passed. So when we then share that information with the contractor, who then develop their own content, and in some cases used to produce shop drawings. At the end, what it took to get this project completed was primarily due to the collective effort of communication, experience, trust, and respect between not just the architectural teams, but also the consultants, contractors, subcontractors, and the owner, of course, as well as the owner's representative. And with that, I conclude my presentation.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that. I think I speak for everyone to say that that building is absolutely jaw-dropping, and I think all the people that are gonna have all their conferences and conventions there, it's just gonna be a great use of the space. Obviously, there'll be billions and billions of people going through there, so that's excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. Pippa, we'll go over to you now to share about your two projects.
Yeah, I want to talk about two different projects, and the one thing that was really kind of very clear about both of them, even though they were very different, one we started at the very beginning and one we kind of jumped in at the DD phase because we weren't the design architect. But what was really apparent and strong, because both projects were during the pandemic, they were both really tight timeline schedules, was just there really was true collaboration. And I think one of the things that really helped that was the fact that with both projects, we had weekly OAC calls. So the owner, the client, the GC, the architect, and everyone knew from the very beginning, like the whole design narrative, the storytelling, where we were heading from a design standpoint. And so all those different faculties and professionals were included in that initial brainstorming session and that initial design presentation. So they really knew the story, and it's kind of like we all kept that story. That was the book, the roadmap that we went with. And so as problems came up, and there were many, because, you know, it was a pandemic and there was great shipping problems and a lot of the finishes needed to be changed out so they were available. But everyone really understanding the story could jump in and give really great design solutions and VE solutions and time-saving solutions. So I feel like it was very collaborative and client-driven changes. Everyone was involved in those. So we all really had a good part on getting that together of finding solutions. So the first project that I wanted to speak to, it was just over 1 million square foot. It was a warehouse for a food distribution center, and they really wanted to create some lifestyle centers. So they're a company that started in California, and we came up with this whole storytelling narrative that as a way of wayfinding throughout the warehouses and through these lifestyle centers, we would give each building a different season, and that would actually help us with color coding things, selecting finishes, wayfinding, but also give them a sense of what was going on in the space. So of those 1 million square foot, there was about 2-3% which went to lifestyle centers. And as I said, the entire team, the client, this was with Arco Design and Build. So that team was involved as well. And they were involved with our storytelling and how we were really trying to build up these spaces within the warehouse space to make it more humanely proportioned and get finishes in that really tied back to the California roots of the company and keep it very simple and cost effective. So these are just some of the, and this is still in process. So these are just some of the photos that kind of show how we went from our initial images to some of the construction on site photos. And what's been really great with Arco Design and Build is that the communication has been key on everything. They were involved, like I said, from the beginning. They got our design direction. And whenever we've had to swap out some light fixtures or finishes, everyone's kind of been on the same wavelength as to how to do that. And that's been really beneficial and really facilitated fast decisions and different specifications. So this is the other building, which again just shows some of the structure and how we achieved some of those things. So some really fun design elements of bringing in, like I said, the proportion into what would have otherwise been a really huge warehouse space and creating different lifestyle centers. The next project I wanted to talk about was here in Chicago, and it's an apartment building. 240 apartments with amenity spaces. And again, we weren't the design architect, we were the AOR, and we came in at DD with interior design. But obviously, because of the pandemic, a lot of things had to be changed, and including a whole hardware system, because the client, owner-driven, decided that they wanted to have access control with a lot of the hardware. So we had to change that out. And that was really facilitated again with the GC, which was Walsh Construction, being really the facilitator to a lot of these design-driven decisions, but having everybody on the team in those calls so that we could really hash it out together, specifically with a lot of our millwork details, which we had designed again because of client-driven design changes and on strict timelines and budgets. So just having very fast submittal review processes with the, obviously using Procore and Revit to our advantage, but just it was all very seamless and lots of really collaborative decisions, which allowed us to come up with a lot of great design work. So I think that that initial collaboration with the team at the very beginning really helps drive solutions that are faster and more efficient at the end, because everyone does understand where the design story is coming from, and they get excited about it. And it's nice for everybody to jump in and help brainstorm solutions that they might not normally be involved in. And I think that really creates a really nice community spirit over the whole project. I also think us as designers, it's our responsibility to educate the client and the GC just on all sustainable processes that we can do, and sourcing for circular economy, and just finding the best manufacturers and craftsmen that can do our creations. And quite often the GCs have different contexts to us, and it's really nice to share those and just, like I said, hash out different design ideas and the best ways of doing them, and let it evolve in what becomes a better design, because it's been touched by many different eyes and it just facilitates the process.
Great, thank you so much for sharing, Pippa. That was excellent. Both of those projects. Now we're going to get into a bit of a discussion with all of us. So I'll pose a few questions. And then you all can just feel free to jump in. The first question actually on my list here is, what does a true construction partnership actually look like? And I think all of you just showed us what it actually looks like. I mean, in each of your projects, those were great, concrete, real life examples. But does anyone have anything further to add on that topic of, what it actually looks like, what it feels like working with those different parties and collaborating throughout the process?
I think for us, what was really beneficial was, like I said, just having a seamless RFI and submittal process, which Procore facilitated because it's on there. The GCs would look at it first and do a first eye over, and then we would check it. And just so I think going through all of those different faculties and doing that and just being efficient with your responses. Like efficiency, just it makes people happy and it speeds up the process, and that's what we have to do. I mean, construction it's always a fast timeline, and no one can leave those things hanging.
You know, I would add from the contractor's side, the supply chain engagement and leveraging the value of the supply chain into the delivery process. I think gone are the days of the design team fully developing documents in a solo kind of traditional vacuum. Those days are behind us. I think design professionals integrating with supply chain, and that orchestrator, that is your GC, is really where you're going to see a lot of value, especially in the current state we're in and supply chain challenges and all of that. So reaching into the supply chain is and rigorously collaborating with very talented group of people folded into the design team with the contractor.
Yeah, I would add, you know, there's definitely challenges with reaching that true construction partnership level. And it really starts with, you know, what's the project type and the delivery method. Those aspects have implications to how, you know, you can reach that level of true construction partnership. And it really varies. If you look at, for instance, government type projects or public projects versus a private type project, the way that it's formed and contractually structured might suit itself for outcome. So, you know, it really depends, I think. But, you know, ultimately, it's being able to have a good relationship with your client and not making any assumptions, you know, being able to express what the intent is with all parties involved is what communication is all about.
Yeah, and I'd add to that too, transparency. Like the more transparent you are about everything, I think that gains a lot of respect, and that does help that collaborative process. And it definitely, there's so many things that are changing and new products that are coming out that we have to rely on the individual professionals to really guide us in the best decisions and the best sustainable decisions. And our reps are the ones that really do that because they have firsthand training on the newest sustainable products and accessibility things. So it's crucial that we just transparency, communicate, and really listen to each other. Listening is key.
Yeah, regardless of whether you're in the contracting field or an architect, engineer, or even the subcontractors, vendors, manufacturers, I think it always starts with one thing, and that is having our client in mind as number one.
I think each of you did a great job of highlighting the many benefits of early collaboration. But I'm interested to hear, is there any specific challenges that you find collaborating with the client, the project team, you know, specialists and stuff? What would you say would be one of the greatest challenges? You know, even things such as Simon touched on, you know, working across different time zones. How does that work? How do you collaborate together? And as well, you know, what sort of different tools and resources have you used technologically to kind of help with that?
I'll toss one on the table, and actually, Simon and Peppa, you see if you buy into this.
Okay.
I mean, again, back to 99% of these owners don't do this stuff for a living, right? They're doing something else. Getting an owner to decision make, effectively decision make, and the key word effectively, meaning decisions made that are good ones that we don't go back on. I'm not a believer in value engineering. Value engineering is us going backwards and not doing our jobs effectively. And doing our jobs effectively is leading the witness, if you will, with a client who, again, doesn't design and build for a living, getting them to have a governance structure that allows effective decision-making, good sound decision-making, usually is our largest tripping hazard. And we have an in-house client where we do our own development, and even they are challenged with decision-making. So the governance structure, I think, is super important. Who's in what meetings, with what authority, with what responsibility, and the architect and engineers and the contractor effectively leading the client down the path to effective sets of decisions that are stuck, are made and stick. And so that's, I'd throw that on the table, both to you two, whether you agree or if there's other things that you see challenging.
Well, I can add.
I maybe struck a nerve.
Go, Simon.
Well, I was going to say that I can add that having a good relationship with your consultants, your contractor, means that you can trust them to do a good job, right? And it starts with that. But for our clients, it's our ability to define the what if scenarios, much like what Tony was describing. What would it take to get the job done? How do we get there, right? The best partnerships, I think, that they're based on trust. We do what we do because we have done X amount of convention centers in the United States, and from Memphis to the Javits Convention Center. So the client trusts our expertise, and that's a good starting point.
Yeah, I would add to that when it's all part of that design thinking, design storytelling. If the client understands where you're coming from, then you can always use that to go back to and say, well, remember, our story is about this, and we want to stay on track with our story. And so I find it's so instrumental throughout the entire process to just have that as a roadmap, because you constantly go back to it. And you're not throwing anything new out there. You're just reiterating, this was our philosophy, this was our thought process, this was our design thinking, to the point that they are reading that same story and they almost get it. And so you can subconsciously guide them to the right decision, just using that as material in the background. The other thing that is super helpful with clients when you can tell they can't make up their mind is just doing some quick SketchUp options. And, again, if you do a couple, and I'm not a fan of doing a couple because we all know which one we prefer usually, but sometimes it really helps because if you have one, the other one really shines. And that is also really beneficial. It's super quick and fast to do. And that, with the help of our UNFI client with the lifestyle centers in the warehouse, from the very beginning, we just started building the model in Revit and rendering it as we were going and just adding areas. So they really just watched this whole story grow. And as we color blocked it from the wireframe, they really saw the processes and they saw the continuity of the whole design. And that really helped them feel part of the design process. And it also helped everybody else. Like I said, when we had to change things out and come up with quick, fast solutions, everybody knew where we were coming from. It wasn't like, let's guess what we have to do. So that was really beneficial.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add that, typically owners look at certain things. They're looking to, they have a specific budget. They want to do the project top notch, so the quality is super important. Then they also want to have the entire team communicate, right? There's certain things that they're looking to do. The same thing applies with contractors, subcontractors, architects, interior designers, you name it. They're looking for certain things, right? So for a contractor, I would say, they want to keep the project within budget. They want to make sure that without getting into the contractual structure of how different projects can be set up, they're also looking at getting the project done on time. And so there's always benefits of individual benefits, but in the grander picture, I think everybody benefits from working together to achieve a mutual goal.
And everyone's looking at things through a different lens. So it's really, I think that's what adds value as well, just having everybody look at everything through a different lens, whether it's millwork drawing, shop drawing, finishes submittals, or just some issue that came up on site. It's really nice to just have everyone coming in from all these different angles to come up with a solution. And it's fun. That's the fun part. I mean, that's what we do. We solve problems and we make them look beautiful. Like, we creatively solve problems.
I think to that point, just kind of flows perfectly into my final question here is, we typically see design as a more iterative process and construction as a more linear process. But what are the best practices to bring these two different processes together and, achieve that high level of collaboration between both the design and the construction teams?
If I can jump in first, it's open communication, having weekly meetings that have everybody on, so that you're not having to schedule one after the other, but just really, having that open communication with everybody from the beginning.
Design itself can be very fluid and organic. That is true. And I think that there can be a big impact in the way the projects are delivered. So looking at the project delivery method, Tony was speaking about a different process where everybody shares risks and rewards. And in a system like that, you're more apt to work together, right? Because now it's affecting your pocket in its simplest terms. And so I think that does promote collaboration, but not all project types would be suitable for that type of delivery.
Yeah, I think to further that, Simon, it's really about whether the client wants to set the stage to have that kind of engagement. It takes a very unique client, a very sophisticated client, mature client, if you will, that sets that stage and then allows, for no better word, the magic to happen between architect, contractor, and end user, and that whole interface. There's I don't know if you're familiar with a team of teams construct, governance structure. It's a construct that came out of the 1980s in the military, but it's one in which we use in these integrated project delivery models, where you're no longer, there's no longer a head to the table, if you will. It's not a top-down structure. It's actually a structure where you allow the entire team, and in the best ways, I couldn't tell the difference between the contractor and the architect, other than perhaps the clothing the two might wear. But nonetheless, these teams are charged with roles and responsibilities and decision-making, because again, back to decision-making made at the lowest possible level with those that are best qualified to make said decisions. And so a team of teams approach is a governance structure with what's called a project management team, project working teams, senior management. Those kinds of non-traditional governance structures is quite a bit of where I think the iterative process, and I think contractors need to be more exposed to that iterative process. And I think the design team needs to get more exposed to the realities of what it takes moving left to right in construction. Back to, folks, we have to solve this AEC thing for these clients that are desperate for value so they can get on with their business. They're not in the business of they're in the business of curing cancer, and there's an MOB that's part of that solution. We got to provide that solution so they can get about doing their business. So I'm a big proponent of governance structure that is fully integrated, and nothing better than puckering everybody when they're financially tied together at risk. And quite frankly, if you outperform, rewarded, as we should be.
I think as we close, if each of you want to just share a last few comments on your project and on other like integrated processes that you've done. Yeah, basically it's open to any of you now.
I mean, I just want to say it's been great working with Walsh Construction and Arco Design and Build, just because it's been a great experience for everybody. I think the client has really enjoyed being part of that experience. It's something, like Tony said, it's not what they normally do, but we've been lucky with both of our clients where I think that there's a secret designer architect inside them, and they've really reveled in being able to be part of that. And that's important. You know, it's all about experiences, whether they're built experiences or the journey to get to that experience. So I think in us being able to share that with everybody, it's a great gift.
I'll close with this architect in the house of a contractor, you know, surrounded by engineers. Pippa, to your point, getting our people, contractors, to appreciate great design, and that design does matter, and everybody has an ability to appreciate such a thing. So I believe we are continuing to head in a direction in our industry where it is fully integrated. The supply chain will be at the table. I can't tell the difference between the architect, engineers, and contractors because it is an integrated team. That's where we need to head to. And I think the construction industry is evolving to be able to add value when there's no lines on the paper. That's the key. It's easy for someone to quantify something, Pippa and Simon, that you all have put on the paper. But the trick is to anticipate and forecast for that vision at this early stage. Here is the guaranteed budget. You can tell the owner, this is the investment, and being able to forecast what will be there based on design intent. And for contractors, we're terrified with that word, design intent. Well, you know what, we need to get awfully comfortable with it to add value when there's no lines on paper.
Oh, that's exactly what I was going to say, Tony.
Oh, we're on two minds.
You know, because it is about value, you know, regardless of the project type, from office to healthcare to commercial, retail, even residential, you know, clients are looking for value, you know, and to get to that point, you want the different teams that are required to communicate and speak to each other to be able to reach that mutual goal. And so it's a journey that takes you from A to B, and there's nothing in between, right? And so I do strongly feel that, you know, it's about value. You know.
And I also think the pandemic is it's going to force us to be more focused on locality with our finishes and materials that we choose, which is much better for the carbon footprint anyway. So we're going to evolve into a better sustainability model for the built environment. So and I think it's interior designers and architects that really do have to help educate the entire team, because we are the ones that are constantly speaking with the reps who are constantly updating all of their materials and revamping their products to make them even better and carbon negative. So there's so much exciting stuff happening out there, and I think it's a great industry to be in.
I'll make a pitch for the EC3. I don't know, Pippa, you're using the embodied carbon construction calculator, but that's a really key tool to document supply chain carbon and that journey to carbon neutrality. Anyways.
I also wanted to add, you know, our industry is shifting. I mean, there's a cultural shift in the way that we design, in the way that we approach projects, regardless of project type, delivery method, or even client. You know, the use of technology it's moving mountains, really. I see contractors who are deeply involved in developing levels of content derived from the design, the design team's work. And this is all positive. We just need to merge the sustainability aspect of it with the technology aspect of it, which we are in the process of doing, and work together to achieve that mutual goal.
Great. Thank you so much to each of you for taking the time to spend with us today and to share your expertise and your projects. yeah, this has been very educational for me, and I know it will be for all of the viewers as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.